1, 2, 3, 4.
There's always that feeling that the vast majority of people don't know who we are, and I almost prefer that idea, that we're always starting over again, rather than sort of convincing the people who've already sort of maybe followed you for a while or either liked or not liked your previous work to come back on board again. I like the idea that we're still out there sort of hunting for new faces in the crowd. The new record's called Low Fantasy, and I think, you know, maybe to that point, that's part of the inspiration when you sit down to start writing a new record, is that idea of how you're going to go out and sort of, if not extend or expand your audience, yeah, go out and find a new one altogether. And that sort of motivates you, or maybe gives you the courage to follow your intuition, your creative muse or instincts in a new direction. And certainly with this one, it just felt a real sense of freedom that we could make whatever kind of record was going to come to mind and to see it through, rather than get halfway there and then sort of fall back to the things that have worked for you in the past, or revert to your old tricks that you know are going to generate at least a certain amount of success. Familiarity is comfortable. It's something that you almost have to teach yourself not to abuse it in a way. But I try to pay less and less attention to just about everything else around me, including the stuff that I've written in the past when I'm writing a new song now. We recorded in Montreal. This is the first record. We made our last record in Chicago, and the one before. We've always sort of had to escape to make our records before, and we just didn't, for whatever reason, we just didn't want to move anywhere this time. And so we stayed home in Montreal, and not just in Montreal, but in our neighborhood in Montreal. There happens to be a studio that's been around for years and years. So we'd just get on our bikes in the morning and drop our kids off at school and then head to the studio. It's kind of strange that you had that, and then go home and sort of report for duty as a parent, or, you know, back into your normal life. But the studio environment was so sort of unique, or unto itself, you know, this sort of other space. So a lot of that had to do with the producer used, creating a mindset. So you'd, again, go from your very, very normal life to this very sort of almost surreal recording experience every day. Creatively, youth, like, it's hard to overstate how much of a role he played in making this record. And so much of it, aside from obviously the, you know, helping to steer the ship musically and to take what we gave him in terms of, you know, demos, pretty fleshed out, thought out demos of our songs, a version of the record that we thought was heading in the right direction. And he just took it and tore it to shreds, and then we would just constantly be rebuilding it into the shape that you hear today on the album. As you get into it, and as you start to think more, think on your feet as a musician, you're not often asked to think on your feet, because so much of it is about rehearsal and repetition. And then all of a sudden, here's this person who's challenging every idea that you have and forcing you to sort of come at it from another angle. And once you get into that, I think it draws something out of you that you didn't even know was there. And hopefully, if you make your record well, you capture that spontaneity, that energy of actual, like, creativity taking place right there in the studio, and get it on tape. And you're trusting somebody. With a producer, you trust them with your record, in a way. And hopefully the record means a lot to you. And therefore, it's like handing over your baby to, you know, Rasputin or something, you know. Youth produced Urban Hymns by The Verve. He plays in a band, Killing Joke. He's worked with The Orb. He's worked with Crowded House. He plays bass in a band with Paul McCartney. And that was always to me, that was the final You know, when the light goes on, it's like, all right, the guy plays bass in the band with Paul McCartney. You can't really go wrong with that. You learn from every record that you make, no doubt about it. And I still go back, you know, 2, 3, 4 records ago and think back to those moments that, not that you regretted, but that you knew if you were given the opportunity to do them differently, that your record would have taken a sort of a better turn. And you're constantly drawing on that experience as you go along. To the point where, I mean, ultimately, I guess, you're going to make this perfect, in your mind, you're going to make this perfect record because you'll have gone through every misstep that you could possibly, you know, go through, and eventually there'll be nothing but the ideal. That's never going to happen, but it, you know, because we still make mistakes, and we still, you know, we made mistakes on this record that I'm sure the next time around I'm going to think, okay, let's just, if we don't do that, then everything should be just right. But music doesn't work that way. Again, sometimes there's that feeling of having been through something before and knowing, in a way, in a sense, what it is that you want to generate on the stage, what you want to sort of create between you and the people out there, and not being afraid to follow some of our love of electronic music and dance music, and pulling that into what is otherwise a rock and roll record. And some of the bands that I love, especially a band like Primal Scream, they were able to just sort of fuse the two, or not just the two, but many different genres of music seamlessly together. And I wanted our record to feel as whole as that, but also knowing that we've sort of dabbled in all the different things that I love. Like, again, going from Afrobeat music to electronica to folk music, and, you know, straight up songwriting with an acoustic guitar, and that it's all in there, but that people feel it as a sort of a complete experience. Fortunately, we recorded the record pretty much live off the floor, so we know that the sort of the fundamental parts of it are accessible to us as a band, but there's always that challenge of finding a way to place. The music has to take on a second life now, as music that's performed, that will change, that remains sort of open to interpretation on a nightly basis. And so this is the next phase of the album, which you look forward to with, I think, a great deal of anticipation. But the first few times that you go out there are the most nerve-wracking, obviously, but also in a way the most exciting, because you just feel like you're sitting on an unpredictable situation. Whereas after 100 times, you have the muscle memory, you have the sort of, it's worked into that deeper part of you that you rely on to get through a tour. I mean, that's the kind of band that you want to follow. It's just that we could just self-destruct at any minute. You're not really sure if you're going to be able to pull it off, but you try. Hey, I'm Sam Roberts from the Sam Roberts Band. Look for us on Last.fm.